I've lived in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, most of my life. It's a quiet place, full of old churches, antique stores, and families that have been here for generations. Nothing much ever happens. Which is probably why I got into photography, urban exploration, to be exact. There's something about forgotten places that makes me feel alive. Like I'm chasing ghosts that don't know they're dead yet. It started with abandoned barns, shuttered motels, and forgotten train stations. I'd sneak in, take my shots, and leave before anyone noticed. But then I heard about the building. That's what people called it. Just the building. No name, no address listed. I first caught wind of it through an old forum post. Someone mentioned a massive office complex just off Route 30 that had been sealed since the late 90s. No one claimed to own it. No trespassing signs, no boards on the windows. I asked around. Most people shrugged. Some told me they'd never heard of it. But a few, older folks mostly, just gave me this look. Like I'd said something I shouldn't have. So I asked Rachel. She works in real estate, and yeah, she's also my ex. We don't talk much anymore, but she knows buildings. She pulled up her database and tried to search it. Nothing. Dan, if it's not listed here, it doesn't exist. At least not officially, she said, looking uneasy. But it does exist. I found it 3 days later. It was sitting behind a crumbling row of trees off a back road no one uses anymore. A 5-story concrete block of a building. No graffiti. No broken windows. Every pane of glass intact. The parking lot was overgrown but oddly clean. No signs of vagrants. No rusted shopping carts or burnt mattresses. Just stillness. Like the world had forgotten it. The strangest part? The glass on the front doors. Spotless. I stood there for a minute, camera in hand, heart pounding. I should have turned back. But I didn't. I wanted that shot. That perfect abandoned building photo. So I pushed open the door. And it wasn't locked. It let out a soft click, and the cold air from inside rushed into my face like the building exhaled for the first time in decades. I stepped inside. And the silence was absolute. The air inside was stale, but not moldy like I expected. It smelled preserved. As if whatever had been in here hadn't moved in decades, yet hadn't decayed either. The lobby looked like any standard corporate building from the late 90s. Beige carpet. Artificial plants in dusty ceramic pots. A reception desk with a little nameplate that read Margaret. But what really got me, everything was still there. The reception chair was pushed slightly back, like someone had just gotten up. A half-empty coffee mug sat next to an old CRT monitor, and next to it, a framed photo of a man and 2 kids. They were smiling at a beach. There was even a sticky note on the monitor that read, "Meeting rescheduled. 3 p.m. None of this made sense. Places like this always get looted. Vandals break in, smash stuff, spray paint the walls, steal copper wiring. But this looked like the staff had just stepped out for lunch and never returned. I took a few photos. My hands were trembling, but I tried to focus on the details. Calendars still pinned to the walls, all of them stopped in 1997. A bulletin board with memos and birthday announcements. The last posted flyer was for a company picnic. June 12th. No year listed. But I already knew. I moved down the main corridor. Cubicles lined both sides, the partitions faded but still standing. Each desk had its own time capsule, coffee-stained mugs, desk toys, paper files stacked neatly. Some even had little notes scribbled on posts. That's when I heard the sound. A faint creak. Like a door slowly opening somewhere deeper inside. I froze. Every instinct told me to leave. But I didn't. My feet carried me forward. I turned the corner and there it was, a conference room. The blinds were half drawn, and inside I could see a long table, chairs still tucked in, dry erase markers on the ledge of a whiteboard. And written across that whiteboard, in thick red marker, "Do not come downstairs." I blinked, stepped closer, and took a photo. The message was faded, like it had been there a long time. The marker had bled into the surface. Do not come downstairs. The door to the stairwell was right next to the conference room. It was slightly ajar. And just beyond it, I could see the first few steps leading down into darkness. That was the moment I felt it. Not fear exactly, something colder. Like the air itself was pressing in around me. Heavy. Watching. I backed away. And that's when I heard it. Typing. So, rhythmic. Like someone was tapping away at a keyboard just a few cubicles over. But I was alone. Wasn't I? The typing stopped the moment I turned my head. I stood completely still, listening. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't imagining it. It wasn't the building settling. It was real. Someone, something, had been pressing down on those keys. One by one. I took a cautious step toward the source, moving between cubicles like I was in a maze. Each one looked the same, each untouched, frozen in time. But now it felt wrong. Like the longer I stayed, the more I was being absorbed into the place. Like I was becoming another relic. Then I saw it. One of the keyboards had dust wiped from it. Just that one. Every other surface was covered in a thick layer, untouched for years. But this one, someone had used it recently. I knelt down slowly and took a photo. My hands were shaking harder now. As I stood up, I caught something in the reflection of a picture frame. Movement. Behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Just rows of lifeless cubicles. My heart was racing. I forced myself to slow my breathing, to stay calm. But I could feel it now, something was there with me. Not footsteps. Not breathing. Just presence. Thick and cold and quiet. I kept moving. I told myself I'd leave soon. Just a few more shots and I'd be out. But I was already too deep. The hallway led to a corner office with a plaque that read Director of Operations, Walter Crane. The glass on the door was cracked but still held together. I pushed it open. Inside was a spacious office, with a big mahogany desk and a window overlooking the parking lot. A leather chair sat turned toward the window. For a second I thought someone was sitting there. But it was empty. On the desk was an old tape recorder. It clicked on. By itself. A distorted voice crackled through the static. Tired. Frantic. They're still here. They never left. If you hear this, don't go below. I locked the doors for a reason. It feeds on time. The tape ended with a sharp click. And silence. I didn't move. I couldn't. Then came the sound of footsteps. Slow, steady, deliberate. Not above. Not from behind. From below. Somewhere beneath my feet, something was moving. Something that was never supposed to be let out. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't help it. My eyes drifted back toward the hallway, toward that door by the conference room. The one with the stairs. It was still slightly open. And now I could see something else. A dim, yellow glow seeping up through the cracks, like someone had turned on a bulb down there. But there was no power in the building. I'd already checked. Light switches didn't work, computers were dead, nothing beeped or buzzed. And yet, there it was. Faint. Flickering. I backed out of the office, heart hammering against my ribs. My instincts screamed at me to get out, to forget the photos and just run. But some part of me, some reckless part, needed to know what was down there. I made my way back through the corridor, passing the cubicles, the untouched mugs, the scattered papers, until I stood in front of that door again. Do not come downstairs, the whiteboard had warned. I pushed the door open slowly. It creaked. Loudly. The stairwell was narrow and steep, the concrete walls stained with water damage. The air smelled damp, metallic, like old pipes and rust. That faint light glowed at the bottom, flickering like a dying bulb. I took the first step. Then another. Each one echoed louder than it should have, like the walls were too close, like sound had nowhere to go but back into my ears. Halfway down, I heard a new sound. A whisper. Not a voice I could make out, but a pattern. Low and repetitive. As if someone, or something, was chanting. I stopped. Held my breath. The whispering continued, just below the edge of hearing, like it wasn't meant for me to understand. Or maybe I wasn't supposed to hear it at all. I reached the bottom. The light was coming from an old bulb hanging by a cord in the ceiling. It flickered violently, casting shadows that moved when I didn't. The hallway down here was narrower. Tighter. Rows of doors lined each side, all closed. All unmarked. Except for one. At the very end. It had no handle. just deep scratches where one might have been. That door was slightly open too. And from behind it, I heard it again. Typing. Only this time, it was faster. Erratic. Like 100 fingers tapping at once. I took one step forward. And every light in the hallway went out. I froze in the pitch black, unable to see my own hands. The sudden darkness felt physical, thick, pressing in from all sides. I backed against the wall, breathing through my nose to stay quiet. Every part of me screamed to run, to get back up those stairs and never look back. But something kept me rooted there. A faint hum. Barely audible. Mechanical. I felt along the wall until I found the corner and turned right, moving deeper into the basement. My fingers brushed cold metal, pipes, maybe. The whispering had stopped. So had the typing. But the hum was growing louder. Then ahead I saw it. A soft blue glow leaking out from under a door at the far end of the hallway. I walked toward it slowly, the silence between my footsteps feeling longer than it should have. I reached for the doorknob. It was ice cold. I turned it and pushed. Inside was a small room, filled with old monitors stacked side by side. Rows of dusty VHS machines blinked with red lights. Thick cables coiled across the floor like vines. Every screen showed a different angle of the building. The lobby, the hallways, the offices, the stairwell. All empty. Then my eyes landed on the final monitor in the middle row. It was me. Standing right there. In that exact room. Only I wasn't moving. I leaned in closer. The version of me on the screen was frozen still, his face blank, his eyes wide open. The frame rate was jittery, but the image was unmistakable. Then, slowly, the figure on the screen tilted its head. Just a few inches. Just enough to let me know it wasn't a frozen frame. It was watching me. I stumbled backward and the screen flickered. Every monitor flashed at once. The lobby went black. The stairwell camera glitched, showing static for a split second before returning to an empty frame. All the rooms were empty again. Except for one. The camera feed for the floor above, the one I'd just come from, now showed a figure standing behind the reception desk. Just a silhouette. Still as stone. Then another feed showed a different figure. Sitting at a desk, hands poised over a keyboard. Then another. And another. Every monitor slowly filled with them. Silhouettes. Frozen in time. Watching me. I backed out of the room, unable to take my eyes off the screen where I was still standing. That version of me hadn't moved. Not once. Not even to blink. Then, from the static of the speaker above the monitors, came a voice. Not mine. Not anyone I knew. But it spoke in a calm, dead tone. You're already part of the recording. I slammed the door shut behind me and stumbled back into the hallway, my flashlight bouncing wildly across the walls. My legs felt like rubber. My throat was dry. But most of all, I couldn't get the voice out of my head. You're already part of the recording. What the hell did that mean? I started toward the stairwell. I needed to get back up to ground level. The air down here felt tighter now, like something had shifted. The rows of unmarked doors seemed closer than before, and I couldn't shake the feeling that if I turned my back on them for too long, one of them would open. As I reached the stairs, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. My footprints. They were there in the dust, leading down exactly as I'd come, except now there were more. Another set. Coming from one of the basement hallways. Following mine. I didn't look back. I bolted up the stairs two at a time, heart punching against my ribs. I pushed through the stairwell door into the main floor and slammed it shut behind me. The lobby was darker now. The sunlight through the windows had dimmed. But it wasn't just the light. Everything was slightly off. The reception desk was still there, but the photo frame had fallen over. The nameplate, Margaret, was gone. The coffee mug was shattered on the carpet, but no one had touched it. And the calendar on the wall now read June 12, 1997. I stood there, staring. It was clean. Brand new. No dust. No curled corners. Just like it had just been printed and pinned up. My breath caught in my throat. I walked into the hallway again. The cubicles were still there, but the items had changed. No more faded posts. No more dusty mugs. Now they looked fresh. In use. A fresh printout was still warm on one desk. A computer screen glowed faintly with a login prompt. And then I heard it. Voices. Muffled conversation. Phones ringing. Chairs rolling. I turned my head slowly toward the far end of the corridor. There were people there. Office workers. Walking between desks. Talking. Moving like it was a normal Thursday morning. Only they weren't right. They moved just slightly out of sync. Faces turned too slowly. Mouths moved with no sound. Every movement looked like a scene stuck in buffer, like a memory struggling to play itself back. I stepped back behind a cubicle partition and held my breath. No one noticed me, but I noticed something else. The lights above were flickering, in perfect rhythm. And every time they blinked out, the scene reset. Same walk cycles. Same gestures. Same glitchy loop. Then, in the far corner, one of them looked directly at me. And smiled. The light blinked out. When it came back on, they were all gone. And the calendar now read June 11th, 1997. I didn't know what day it really was anymore. The date on my phone had stopped updating. My messages wouldn't send. No signal, no Wi-Fi. Just that same battery percentage, frozen at 91%. The building had me. I walked back to the lobby, hoping the front doors might be open now, or broken, or anything. But they weren't. Still sealed shut like they were part of the wall. No hinges. No handle. Just glass too thick to break. But something new had appeared. The elevator doors. I could have sworn they weren't there before. Now, they stood at the far side of the lobby, brushed steel with a single button glowing red. It blinked slowly, inviting. Daring. I hesitated. My reflection in the steel looked off, like it was a half-second behind my movements. Then the button clicked by itself. The doors slid open. Inside, the lights flickered. A panel of numbered buttons lined one wall, labeled from B3 to 10. The B3 button was glowing faintly, though I'd never gone below the basement level. The mirror inside was cracked. A long, jagged split that ran across the center. I stepped in. The doors closed instantly. I didn't press anything. The elevator began to move, down. Lower than the basement I had just left. B2, then B3. Then the lights cut out. For a few seconds, I was suspended in total blackness. No movement. No sound. Then the elevator jolted to a stop and the doors opened. I stepped out into a hallway I hadn't seen before. Different from the offices. The walls were concrete. Exposed wiring ran overhead. The floor was wet, puddles of standing water reflecting the emergency lights that pulsed a deep orange. It smelled like rust and mold. As I walked further in, I began to hear something. Breathing. Not mine. Slow. Labored. Like someone trying to stay calm. But it wasn't coming from around me. It was coming from the intercom system, crackling overhead in bursts. Then I saw him. A man, sitting at the end of the hallway on a folding chair. His back was to me. He wore a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, suspenders hanging from his sides. His head was tilted down, hands resting on his knees. "Hello," I called out. He didn't move. I stepped closer. "Sir? Are you all right?" Still nothing. I got within 10 feet when he finally lifted his head, slowly. But he didn't turn to face me. He just stared at the far wall in front of him, eyes wide, unblinking. Then he said something quietly, under his breath. "It records what you see. You shouldn't have looked." He stood. Too fast. And turned. His face was smeared, blurred like a corrupted video file. Features twitching, distorting, rewinding and replaying in tiny, endless loops. I stepped back. He stepped forward. The lights went out again. And the only thing I could hear was the wet slap of his bare feet coming closer. I ran. I didn't look back. I just sprinted down the hallway, my footsteps splashing through the cold water, echoing against the concrete walls. The emergency lights pulsed behind me, turning everything into flashes of orange and black. I didn't know where I was going. Every hallway looked the same. Pipes lined the ceiling, dripping onto the floor, hissing as if the building itself was breathing. The distorted man's footsteps followed, slow but steady, like he knew I'd tire out before he did. Then I saw it. a red-lit sign glowing faintly above a metal door at the end of the corridor. Emergency exit. I ran for it like it was the last light on Earth. The handle was rusted, stiff. I yanked with both hands and it groaned open, scraping against the floor. Behind it, a narrow stairwell led straight up into darkness. I didn't stop. Step after step, I climbed, using the railing to pull myself upward. Each floor I passed was marked only by a small plaque embedded into the wall, B2, B1, B2. But then something changed. The next plaque didn't read 3. It read B1 again. I stopped, turned and looked behind me. The stairwell below was swallowed in shadow. I climbed faster now, 2 steps at a time. My legs burned. My lungs begged. Another landing. The plaque read, T. Fin. I'd gone in a loop. The lights flickered, and that heavy breathing returned, now above me. I looked up and saw a figure standing at the top of the stairs. Same shirt. Same suspenders. Same blurred, stuttering face. He didn't move. But the light blinked. And he was closer. I spun and bolted back down, taking the stairs recklessly. Down to the door marked B3. I shoved through it and slammed it behind me. The hallway was darker now. The emergency lights were flickering violently. Sparks crackled from overhead wiring. I staggered forward and found another door. This one was different, wooden. Splintered. A small brass plaque had fallen onto the ground near it. I picked it up. Director of Operations, Walter Crane. I froze. I was back in the same hallway. But the layout had shifted. The door to his office now stood alone in a black hallway. No other rooms. No cubicles. Just that door. And from behind it, I heard something that chilled me more than anything else so far. Typing. Not fast. Not erratic. Slow. Deliberate. Like someone was writing something that had already happened. I reached for the doorknob. And before I could touch it, it turned on its own. The door creaked open just a crack. Enough to let out a sliver of warm light. The sound of typing stopped. I pushed it wider. The office was pristine, immaculate, even. A large oak desk sat in the center, polished to a mirror sheen. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with old, leather-bound volumes. An old brass lamp glowed warmly in the corner, casting long shadows. There was no dust, no decay, nothing like the rest of the building. And seated at the desk, with his back to me, was a man in a dark gray suit. His fingers rested on a typewriter. Not moving. Just waiting. I stepped inside. My heartbeat slowed, not because I was calm, but because it felt like the room wanted it to slow down. Like it controlled the rhythm of my body now. The man at the desk spoke without turning. I thought you'd come earlier. His voice was calm. Measured. Like someone in the middle of a sales pitch. I couldn't respond. My mouth was dry. I watched you on the monitors, he continued. You're curious. That's why the building let you in. He finally turned to face me. His face was normal. Too normal. Smooth, clean-shaven, eyes sharp behind round glasses. But something was off, like I was looking at a perfect drawing of a man, not the real thing. You saw the footage, he said. You saw them. Do you know what they are? I shook my head. Memories. This place stores them. Everyone who enters leaves a part behind. Some more than others. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a thin file. It was already labeled. With my name. He slid it across the desk. You've been here before. I blinked. No, I haven't. You don't remember. That's by design. I picked up the file and flipped it open. Inside were photos, black and white images of me, walking through the same halls. Same rooms. Same basement. But in one of the photos, I wasn't alone. Standing behind me in the image was the man with the blurred face. You left a strong imprint, the man at the desk said. That's why the loop reopened when you returned. I dropped the file. I want to leave, I said. He smiled gently. You can. But you'll come back. You always do. This building doesn't keep you here. He pointed at my chest. You do. I stumbled back toward the door. But the hallway outside was gone. In its place was the surveillance room. Every monitor flickering on again. And on each screen was the same thing. Me standing in that office. Over and over again. Different days. Different years. The same moment. Repeated. The door behind me clicked shut on its own. I stood frozen, staring at the monitors in the surveillance room. Each one played a loop of me in the office, some from the past, some from moments that hadn't happened yet. On one screen, I stood calmly. On another, I was yelling. On a third, I was weeping silently into my hands. But they were all me. I turned away from the monitors and ran. I didn't care where I was going anymore. I just wanted distance, from the office, from the man, from the blurred figure, from whatever the hell this place was. I pushed through a door at the far end of the hallway and found myself in a maintenance tunnel I hadn't seen before. The air was colder here. Metallic. It smelled like damp steel. I followed it in silence. The tunnel eventually split into two. One path led upward, back toward the known parts of the building. The other sloped downward. Darker. Narrower. More wrong. And yet, I felt myself pulled toward it. At the bottom, I found a rusted metal door. The paint was flaking off. It had no handle, just a dented plaque screwed into the center. No number. No label. Just the letter. I pushed it open. The room inside was massive. It looked like it had once been a records archive. Shelves stretched high into the shadows above, packed with boxes and binders. But it wasn't abandoned, far from it. Someone had been here. The floor was clean. A single desk sat in the center, with an old tape recorder placed neatly on top. Next to it, a stack of labeled cassette tapes. I picked one up. The label read, Incident 27, Subject attempts to leave. I pressed play. My voice came through. I thought I was getting out. I really thought. Static. But the elevator only went in circles. And when I looked in the mirror, static. It wasn't me anymore. I dropped the recorder. I turned back toward the door, but it had disappeared. Gone. As if the wall had healed over it completely. I was sealed in. I walked between the shelves, running my fingers along the edges of the boxes. Every few feet, I found labels with names. Eleanor Price. Marcus Bell. Diana Hewitt. Hundreds of them. Then I found mine. A full shelf. Dozens of tapes. All dated. All labeled. And all already used. I didn't remember recording any of them. But somehow they remembered me. At the far end of the aisle, I saw something move. The figure, tall, dark, unmoving, just standing between the shelves. I stepped back. It took one step forward. The lights above flickered, and the tapes began to shake on the shelves. The building was remembering. And this time, it wasn't going to let me forget. I ran deeper into the archive, weaving between rows of shelves that all looked the same. The boxes blurred past me, every label a name I didn't recognize but somehow felt familiar. My breath caught in my throat, chest heaving. The figure behind me didn't run. It didn't need to. It just kept moving, always one step closer than it should have been. Then I saw it. A door. No markings. No plaque. No sign. Just a black metal frame wedged between the shelves. It shouldn't have been there. It bent the space around it, like it had forced itself into the building. The air near it felt cold. Thin. Like it was being pulled into the room. I hesitated only for a second, then opened it. Inside was complete darkness. Not dim, not shadowed. My flashlight beam vanished the second it crossed the threshold. I stepped in and felt the temperature drop instantly. My breath turned visible, each inhale scraping my lungs. Then I heard it. Not breathing. Not footsteps. Typing. Rapid. Desperate. Coming from the center of the room. I moved forward slowly, and gradually, a light began to glow, a sickly green hue from a single terminal screen. On the desk in front of it sat an old keyboard, keys yellowed with age, the plastic warped by time. But the keys were moving on their own. Each keystroke appeared on the screen, one line at a time. Subject 43 record active. Entry 1. Initial breach through main floor. Subject unaware. Entry 2. Interaction with visual loops successful. Entry 3. Emotional response recorded. Entry 4. Subject identified. The screen glitched. The text scrambled, then realigned. Subject identified. I took a step back. The screen continued typing. Entry 5. Current location. Room F null. Entry 6. Termination pending. I reached for the power cord. But before I could touch it, the desk lights flickered on, and I saw the walls. Lined with photos. All of me. Sleeping. Walking. Inside my apartment. At work. On the subway. Images taken from angles I never saw. From corners of rooms I thought were empty. I stumbled back into the dark. The void swallowed me again. Behind me, the door slammed shut. And I realized something with a sinking certainty. This wasn't a room in the building. It was the building. And it had been watching me long before I ever walked through its front door. I felt my way along the walls of the black room, the photos still burning in my mind. Images of myself from angles no human could have captured. Something deep inside me cracked, like a mirror finally giving way under pressure. I wasn't lost anymore. I was contained. After what felt like hours in the dark, I found another door. This one wasn't like the others. It was wooden, old, the paint peeling in curled flakes. There was a key in the lock, already turned. A faint light leaked out from the edges. I pushed it open. The hallway on the other side was familiar. Carpeted. Beige walls. Fluorescent lights humming quietly overhead. It was the third floor. I had somehow returned to the standard office space, as if spat out from the nightmare underneath. The same room where I first saw the monitors. Where the lights had flickered. Where things had only started to go wrong. I stood in the middle of the hall, stunned, trying to ground myself in this strange normalcy. Then I heard it. The elevator ding. So innocent. I turned my head slowly. The brushed steel doors at the end of the hallway slid open. It was empty inside. But this time, the button panel was different. No numbers. Just a single glowing button. Return. It pulsed like a heartbeat, waiting. I should have run. Instead, I stepped in. The doors closed behind me. The elevator didn't move. Instead, a low static sound filled the space. The lights flickered, and the steel walls began to shimmer, like water. Then they changed. The elevator walls became screens. And they showed me again. Not just one version. Dozens. Hundreds. Different outfits. Different expressions. All stepping into this same elevator. All pressing that same button. I wasn't the first. I wasn't even the 100th. I reached out and pressed return. The elevator shuddered. It began to move, not up or down, but inward. The air thinned again. My ears rang. My vision blurred. It felt like being unzipped from reality. Silence. And when the doors opened, I wasn't in the building anymore. I was back in my apartment. Or something like it. The lights were off. My phone was on the counter. The same coffee mug still had a ring of dried residue at the bottom. It was exactly as I left it. Too exact. Then my phone lit up on its own. A notification. Surveillance active. Welcome back. I stood frozen in my apartment, phone screen glowing in my hand. Surveillance active. Welcome back. The message vanished before I could take a screenshot. I opened my camera app, looked around the room, ceiling corners, power outlets, anywhere something could have been installed. But I didn't find anything. No wires. No blinking lights. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I went to the window and pulled the blinds aside. Outside, the street looked just like before. Same trash bins. Same flickering street lamp. Same quiet building across the road. But something was off. No cars drove by. No wind moved the trees. No sound. It was like looking at a photograph of the world instead of the world itself. I stepped into the bathroom and splashed water on my face. The light above the mirror buzzed faintly. I looked up at my reflection. And my blood turned to ice. The mirror showed my bathroom. But I wasn't in it. It was empty. I stared into it, blinking, moving my hands, but the reflection didn't follow. The lights in the mirror were slightly dimmer, like the room it showed was just a few seconds behind. Then, slowly, a figure walked into the frame from behind, wearing my clothes. But it wasn't me. It stood in my place, tilted its head, and lifted its hand to the glass. I backed away. fell into the hallway. The lights in my apartment began to flicker, one by one, from the bedroom to the kitchen, as if something were moving through the space behind me. I grabbed my phone again and tried to call someone, anyone. But there was only one contact in my list now. Director Crane. My thumb hovered over it. Then, with a desperate instinct, I tapped. It rang once. Then his voice answered. "You made it home. Good. What the hell is going on?" I asked. "What did you do to me?" "You were part of the system before you ever walked into the building," he said calmly. "You just didn't know it yet." I was shaking. "Then what was the building?" "A terminal," he said. "A reflection. You entered it. And now it's entered you." I wanted to throw the phone across the room. But then I heard something. Typing. Coming from the other room. I crept down the hall. Into the bedroom. The desk light was on. And there, sitting in my chair, was the version of me I'd seen in the mirror. Typing into an old typewriter. The same one I'd seen in the director's office. He didn't look up. Just kept typing, slowly, rhythmically. I stepped closer. I stepped forward, heart pounding like it was trying to tear through my chest. The version of me sitting at the desk, the other me, continued typing, calm and deliberate. The keys clicked with a rhythm that felt unnatural, as though each letter was planned years in advance. I leaned in and watched the words appear on the page. He stepped forward, heart pounding. It was writing me. In real time. The figure stopped typing. Without turning, it spoke. "You shouldn't be here yet." Its voice was mine. "What is this?" I asked. My voice shook. "What are you?" "I'm the part of you that remembers," it replied. "The part the building didn't erase." I backed away. But I left. I got out. It finally turned. Same face. Same eyes. But there was something dead behind them. Something hollow. "You returned because it let you. But it never intended to release you." The figure stood and walked toward me, slow and steady. "You left through the front door, Thace. But doors swing both ways." I looked around. My apartment was shifting. The walls pulsed faintly, like they were breathing. The shadows no longer followed the shape of the furniture. My reflection in the window didn't match my movements anymore. "You're still in it," the copy of me said. "You've always been in it." I stumbled back into the hallway, but it had changed. It was longer now. The walls narrower. Endless doors lined each side, all closed. At the end of the corridor, one door stood open. Dim light spilling out. I walked toward it. Inside was an empty conference room. A projector whirred in the back. On the screen, grainy black and white footage played. In a stairwell. Walking in circles. From hours ago, or days. I couldn't tell anymore. In the corner of the room sat a clipboard. I picked it up. Subject 43 observation. Transition successful. Integration incomplete. Awareness increasing. And at the bottom, recommended action. Loop continuation. File under author tier. I turned toward the projector and saw that the video had changed again. This time it was me, right now, standing in the room, reading the clipboard. I reached out and shut the projector off. Instant darkness. And in that darkness, the copy of me spoke again. "This isn't your story anymore." But he was wrong. Because I could feel something shifting. Not in the building. Not in the lights. But in me. A thread of resistance. Of memory. Of clarity. Like a crack in the wall of a cell. The figure stepped into view again. But this time, I didn't step back. I stared at the figure. Myself, but not. He was still. As if he already knew how this would end. But I didn't back down. Not anymore. The light around us flickered, not like failing electricity, but like reality itself was stuttering. The floor beneath my feet felt spongy. Insincere. Like it hadn't been built, but written into place. The projector in the corner sparked back to life on its own. A blank white screen. No footage this time. Just text. Input required. End of subject file. Please confirm completion. A keyboard blinked under the screen. The same type I'd seen in every strange room, old, dusty, mechanical. I could feel its weight without even touching it. I took a slow step toward it, glancing at the screen again. The words shifted. Final entry must be submitted by subject. Submit, yes/no. The lights in the room dimmed to a breath. The only glow came from the screen and the space around the keyboard, waiting. The figure, my other self, watched silently. If I typed yes, would I end it? Would I trap myself here forever, finalize whatever cycle they'd pulled me into? If I typed no, would the loop begin again? Or worse, would it erase me completely? I raised my hands. Typed nothing. Instead, I turned to the figure. I'm not playing your part anymore. For the first time, it flinched. Just slightly. But it felt real. You think you're different? It asked. You think the others didn't try that? I don't care about the others. I walked back to the center of the room, past the fake mirror, past the rows of tapes lining the walls. Some mine, some labeled only with question marks. This wasn't a place. It was a script. And I was done following it. I took a deep breath and began tearing the pages from the clipboard. One by one. Then I walked to the typewriter in the corner, the same one from the director's office, the one the copy of me had used, and I typed my own line. Not theirs. Subject refuses final input. Subject rewrites. The walls trembled. The lights stuttered hard now, like the system was rejecting what I was doing. Or trying to stop it. I didn't stop. I typed faster, keys slamming down, imprinting ink into the paper. Subject rejects loop. Subject chooses exit. Subject breaks frame. The figure stepped forward. Desperate now. Stop. You don't understand. If you overwrite the program, you overwrite yourself. I looked him in the eye. Then maybe I was never real to begin with. And I hit return. The building screamed. The sound was in the walls, the floor, inside my teeth. The lights exploded, blinding white, and the room buckled. Then nothing. And silence. When my eyes opened, I was lying on my side. In the grass. Sunlight poured through the trees above me. My car was parked just off the road, engine cold. And in my pocket, a single torn piece of paper. On it, typed in the same faint font. File closed. I got up. I didn't look back.